The following is a production of Shark Flight Media.
From mechs to mages or agents to Argonauts, this is the world of Chris Kennedy Publishing. This is the CKP Future Books Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to the January edition of Future Books. We're starting our third year here with Chris, and want to thank everyone who has been on this journey with us from the beginning. I do want to take this time to ask everyone to please go to Apple Podcasts and give us a good rating. That moves us up in the list and makes us much more visible, so others can listen to the podcast and learn about the Four Horsemen universe, learn about the rise of the automated empire, and all the other series that we love that CKP publishes. We're going to start this year, as we do every month, talking to our publisher and editor, Chris Kennedy, about the releases that are coming out in January. And we're also going to talk about what we expect for the coming year with CKP. Welcome, Chris. Thank you for coming on the podcast again.
Hey, thanks a lot. Great to be here. I'm really excited that you were able to come back for a third year. Looking forward to all of the new things that we're doing this year, getting a chance to let the readers hear about it. We've got some great things coming, and I can't wait to get into them.
CKP has, like the World's Fair, it's getting bigger and better every year. We now have a website that is fully featured, and it has more information than we've ever had before. I'm very excited about the changes there. We published less books last year than we did the year before, but I believe the quality has become so much better. Our stable of authors are all wonderful people. It's one of the few organizations I've ever been a part of where it seems like everybody likes each other and everybody is pushing and trying to help each other. So I'm super excited about the coming year.
Well, I think you hit it right on there. CKP was built kind of with a family model in mind. And, you may fight with your sister or brother here and there, but, at the end of the day, they're your sister or brother, and you make up and you try and pull them along. And when one wins, we all win. So I'm really excited about that, that the authors have all bought into that, and that's how we're able to carry on business.
Talking about our authors supporting each other, we're going to start the year and start the month of January with one of our longtime authors, an author who has written both on the fantasy and the science fiction side for CKP, one of the best storytellers and world builders that we have at CKP, Jon Osborne. He has written a nonfiction book called World Building for Novices. This is a book that anybody that has aspirations of becoming a writer, especially in science fiction or fantasy, should read. Tell us a little bit about the book and what caught your eye and what made you make a decision away from just our traditional science fiction and fantasy fare that we release. What prompted you to get behind and push World Building for Novices?
Sure thing. This is part of our Author Fundamentals series that we have. I believe it's the 6th or 7th book in the series. One of the things that I'm big on is giving back to the next generation of authors. We always try and leave a couple slots open for new authors in the anthologies we do. And this series is built to help new authors, learn both the craft and the business of writing so that, they can get ahead. One of the best or one of the most important things about telling a story is being able to transport the reader to that, that planet, that universe, and get them acclimated to it. And Jon, I think, is uniquely qualified for this because not only is he an excellent author, he's also been into role-playing games for a long time, been a dungeon master for D&D, a lot of other things. So he's very cognizant of how to set up a world and bring it to, the people that are either playing or reading about it. And I think that in this book, he's done an excellent job not only explaining how to do it, but giving giving authors some considerations for why they may want to do this or that, how to approach the world building and do it in such a manner that the reader is immersed in it without being beaten over the head with it.
Well, a lot of people don't realize that, especially in science fiction, the world is a character in the book.
Absolutely.
Aliens have to be alien, and the worlds can't just be Earth named something else. So learning to build a consistent world that has rules that may not be the physics or magic or science, may be completely different. That world can be just as much a character as any character that you write that brings the plot along.
Absolutely. And the thing about it, is that, yes, it needs to be different. Yes, you want to feel transported, but it has to be seamless so that you're not being beaten over the head with it. If it's just, the same thing over and over, it's so alien that you can't really tell what's going on. It can be too much. It can be overwhelming sometimes. And Jon does an outstanding job explaining how to do it, without losing the reader or the gamer for that matter.
And this is why I love you, because with that statement, that allows us to segue seamlessly without beating the listeners over the head with it. Someone who creates great worlds and makes them interesting and not Earth, and writes a fabulous story with characters that you would want to meet in real life is Fred Hughes. He has written a new book, Prince Conqueror, and this is in his Prince Hazard series, and one of my favorites. But him and John Sears are two of my favorite authors, and I'm about halfway through this book, and once again, he's hit a book out of the ballpark.
Absolutely. This is the seventh book in the series, the Prince of Brittania series. And it is Prince Hazard has made it to Earth, and this is the book where he has to try and take it. I don't want to spoil it too much, but if you've enjoyed the series so far, you're going to enjoy this book even more. There are lots of things going on. There are good guys trying to be good. There are bad guys being bad. And it's a lot of fun. It's a good read. I've stayed up late a couple nights to get this to get it read.
I want to once again reiterate, if you're looking for something to read over the holidays, and you have not read Fred Hughes' series, this is a series of books that you can buy all of them, and there's not a bad one in the bunch, and they will make you lose a lot of sleep. You do not want to put these books down.
Right. Like I said, this is the seventh, and I know the eighth is nearing completion, so there won't be much of a wait for the next one, too. So jump right in. The water's fine.
And then earlier in the conversation, Chris was talking about how CKP loves to find new authors and bring new authors into the fold. We have a new author that's going to be releasing a book on January 12th. He's new to CKP by the name of James Fox, and his book is Revolution. He's going to be our featured author this month, and he's going to tell you in a little more detail what his book is about. I read it very early when it was submitted to CKP. It's a fabulous tale, and for someone who likes thrillers as well as science fiction, this book gives you both. I think this is a great pickup for CKP, and I expect Mr. Fox is going to be writing with us for a long time. Tell our listeners a little bit about Revolution.
Well, I expect the same thing. James is very prolific. He writes a lot. So I'm looking forward to getting a lot and bringing it to the readers. Like you said, this is more of a science fiction thriller. So it helps broaden out CKP a little bit beyond just the more military sci-fi. There are some military things in it, but it also does have thriller characteristics. This book, and actually the second one in the series, were previously released, and I grabbed a hold of them, and we're re-releasing them. The third book's out, is ready, so it'll be 1, 2, 3, just like the other series that we've done here recently. You don't have to be afraid of jumping in at the start, because the other books are already in hand, and they'll be coming out, maybe not as fast as some people read them, but coming out monthly, where you don't lose the storyline, and you can just keep going with it. So looking forward to getting those out starting beginning of the year there.
Yeah, and if our listeners want some kind of idea to hang their hat on as far as what kind of book this is, imagine if Tom Clancy had written science fiction. This is that kind of book.
I'd read it.
Absolutely, I would too. And I expect this is going to be one of our best series in 2024. And
nice.
To continue the conversation from earlier, Chris also mentioned the fact that we always try to leave 2, 3, maybe 4 slots in an anthology for people who want to become writers, people who have that ambition, maybe have a story in their head because they've read one of the previous 80 Four Horsemen novels, or, is a great fantasy buff and reaches out to Rob Howell at a convention and says, hey, I read the Valor anthology, and I think I have a story for that. And ordinarily, there may be 3 slots, and there's probably 8 or 10 submissions, and out of those, we try to pick the best. Sometimes there's more best than there are slots, and we expand the slots. John Olsen wrote a story in our last Four Horsemen anthology, The Phoenix Initiative, First Missions, and it was a very good story. It was so good, in fact, that Chris went out and said, hey, you wrote a great short story. Why don't you give us a great novel? So Failed Ambitions by John Olsen is a new author and a new book. Tell us a little bit about it.
Sure. I have to correct you, though. It's Foiled Ambitions, not Failed.
And I can't read either.
Yeah. But that'll be coming out on January 19th. Like Randy said, looking forward to this one. This was not an award winning, but it won its way in. It was a slot winning, exactly. Won its way into the First Missions anthology because it was great. And I said, okay, when can you get me a new one? A full story. And he was like, wait, I can do this? Yes, you can. And he got started on it. And I had a book that was going to be in that slot. And it dropped. And I said, hey, if you finish this here in a couple, 3 weeks, we can get you in January. And he was like, really? And I said, yep. And he jumped right on it, finished it up, and we were able to get the cover art. That'll be coming out, as we've taped this, it'll be out here next week. So everyone will get to see that. And I'm really looking forward to it. This is another one of those times where, CKP brings somebody in, and then we're able to help develop them and get him started. He's written some other books and some other series of his own, but I'm expecting this to give him a lot more of a soapbox to stand on, so that people can see, what kind of author he is.
Yeah, I agree. And, having a Four Horsemen novel certainly gives somebody exposure, because there's so many people who are already invested into the universe, and it's almost a cross between novels and comic books. People want the next story. They want to see, they're afraid that if they miss one of the Four Horsemen books, that something's going to be referred to 3 books from now that they won't know, they won't have any background for, because they missed that episode. So I'm really happy for John being able to have a book in the universe.
you saying that, leads me to, also make the note that, this was a story that was in the Phoenix Initiative First Missions Anthology. So this is something new. And readers can jump on this. They don't have to go, I haven't read the other ones in the series, or I'm a little behind. I don't know how anyone could get behind on the Four Horsemen universe. But it happens. Sometimes you look away for a month and all of a sudden you're several books behind.
It seems that way, doesn't it?
It does. But since this was a submission winner, you can jump right into this and take a look and not have to worry that you missed anything. So, everybody can take a look at it.
And we probably ought to mention here that, the Four Horsemen universe has been going on for a while now, and there are a lot of books in the universe, but our listeners if you've had an interest in Four Horsemen, the Phoenix Initiative is basically a reset of the entire universe. It doesn't have any backstory, really. It's going off its own way. So now is a really good time to jump in and start reading Four Horsemen, because you don't have to know any of the stuff that went on before. It could kind of stand alone by itself.
Absolutely. It was set up to be an alternate entry point for people that had gotten behind and wanted to get back in, but didn't want to have to try and play catch up. So absolutely, you're right. People can jump right in here and just go.
Yeah, they're coming in at a good beginning point. And then we're gonna finish up January on January 26th with the fourth book in the Rise of the Automated Empire, R.A.E. Stolen Dreams. And if I'm not mistaken, this kind of wraps up this first segment of this series. Is that correct?
That is correct. This is the fourth and final book here in this arc. And when I gave it to the editor and she went through it and sent it back, she was like, "This is a great ending to the arc." So I'm really looking forward to getting this out there. A lot of times readers kind of wait until the whole series is out to binge them. This will be the time to binge, and this is a really great universe. It's a little different than what we normally do. It's a little further in the future. It's a little harder, a little more of a hard sci-fi look, in a post-scarcity environment, which is something we don't get a lot of. So it's neat on a variety of levels, and I really hope that everyone will take a look at it.
And that will pretty well wrap up the month of books with CKP, and there should be something here for everybody. We've got some nonfiction, we've got a thriller, we've got a continuation of Fred Hughes' universe. We've got foiled ambitions by John Olsen. We've got new authors, we've got old authors. So, there's not.
If you like CKP, you're going to get a lot more of it.
That's exactly. This is your perfect buffet month. So now that we've talked about the books that are coming out, since it's January, traditionally we talk a little bit about the forthcoming year. I think I'd like to start with talking about our website. One of the things that has been happening gradually over the last year or two is we've been going back and revamping some of our infrastructure. I'm sure everybody's noticed that our artwork for our books has become much more polished and much more visually stimulating. And, I think that was maybe the first major upgrade. And now we've gone back and we've completely revamped the back end of our website, offering a lot more features than we've ever had in the past. So do you want to talk a little bit about what prompted you to do that and some of the things that we've added?
Absolutely. I've been approached on a number of occasions by people that are like, well, you know what? I don't like Amazon, and a lot of your books are on Amazon, and that's just not. I don't want to give my money to them. They're too big. They get too much as it is. Don't like it. So I've been pulling back some of our books from off of it, and putting them on the website and doing direct sales. That way, the authors end up with a higher percentage of the royalties that they'd be getting, and it just works out really well for everybody. As this, we started it kind of in the build up for the Thanksgiving Black Friday sale. And got a number of series on, and you will see over the course of the next year more and more series coming on to the website for direct sales. We have, I think, 4 series started on there in audio now, so you can do audio. We will be able to have some signed copies on there. So, rather than chasing down an author at a convention, you can get a signed copy, from off of the website. And then there's going to be some swag that we get on there as well, which we're still working on getting up there right now. But it's going to be, hopefully a full featured kind of thing. It'll allow us to gather our readers and be able to tell them when there are, good sales, different things going on. We're looking at doing some fun things like having an anthology of first books by a variety of authors, so kind of a reader buffet where you can, get one kind of an anthology with first books from series and find, new series that you might like and then go from there and, binge the whole thing. So there's a variety of different things that we're looking to do with the website, all of which I'm excited about and I'm really looking forward to great things in the upcoming year.
Well, it also allows us to bundle back catalog items and allow our readers, if one of their friends come to them and says, "Hey, I read this series, it was really great," they no longer have to go and buy one at a time from Amazon. They'll be able to buy a bundle that maybe has the first 4 books in the series all bundled together.
Absolutely. Yep. Looking to do that.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about my favorite new feature of the website. So if you go to the website and you scroll down to where the front page where our audiobooks are listed, the ones that are either just released or imminently releasing, there's a little button on the bottom you can click and it will play you a preview of the audiobook. So you can find out, can I stand the sound of this voice actor? Does it sound like it sounds like in my head? Is the cadence something that I can listen to? I think this is a fabulous new feature and something I haven't seen on any other book website. So kudos. I really like this.
Hooray!
Hooray! And that's what makes it important that I like it.
But absolutely, and that's something that the web designer is working on. Different things to help readers out, and give them a taste so that they can see. Hey, is this one for me? Is the next one for me? We want all of our readers to be happy and
come back
satisfied.
Spend money
and satisfied with. Well, yeah, sure, okay. The authors love it when you do that.
Well, it also keeps the publishing house open.
It does.
So how many books do you project us publishing next year?
I think we'll probably be just a little ahead of where we were this year. I didn't count them up. In the past couple of years, we were just over 70. I think this year we were just under 70. But that was intentional. We, I gave myself a day, 1 week during the quarter, to take off to try and be a catch up for myself and for readers. And we'll probably do that again. I think that Rob Howell is now in place in Anthony, Kansas. He's got his bookstore open. He's ready to go. This was kind of a year of it was a tumultuous year for him. So we didn't get as many fantasy books out as we had intended. But you will see in the new year, Casey Azell is partnering with him to build the brand a bit, and so there'll be more fantasy, and there'll be a new fantasy mailing list for the people that just want that. So there's lots of things coming on that side of the house. And I really think that it's going to strengthen CKP as a whole, and certainly the new mythology imprint, is going to do a lot more this year. So looking forward to that.
And just to finish off the conversation, from talking in previous months, I assume that the CKP overseas brand is still doing well and will continue to grow, and will continue to put more books out in other languages in the next year.
Absolutely. We're doing real well in German and French. The Spanish market's a little bit harder. It's not as big, but we'll definitely continue German and French. Maybe we'll try another language outside of Spanish, and just see how it goes. We like giving the widest exposure possible to the readers for our authors, and we'll keep making that happen.
And I think that I have probably talked your ear off for the month, so I think we'll wind this down. I just want to say thanks a lot for giving me another year of doing this. It has been a pleasure so far, and I hope we can continue doing it until it's not.
Well, I love chatting with you each month, Randy. So it's one of the highlights of my month. I look forward to it. Gives us a chance to let everyone know what's coming, because there's lots of great stuff coming. In addition to the series that the fans love, they will be continuing. Got some new things lined up. Casey Azell and I have a new series that'll be coming out early in the year, starting in April. There's also a new series from Casey Moores and Bill Fawcett that'll be coming out about the same time. So there's lots of great new things coming, as well as all the things that you already love.
Well, I can't wait to see what comes out, and hope everything goes well over the because we're recording this just prior to the first of the year. I hope you have a great new year, and I hope when we have this conversation in January of next year that we're even more successful than we are now. So thanks so much for your time, and look forward to talking to you in February.
Hey, can't wait.
Thanks, everyone, for listening to the first half of the podcast. And now we come to the part of the podcast where we interview authors of CKP. This month we have a new author to the CKP ranks, James Fox. He has a new book, Revolution. I like to refer to it as a science fiction thriller, kind of like if Tom Clancy had decided to dip his toes into science fiction. I was one of the fortunate people who got to read an early version of this book, and it is a great story. So if you like science fiction and you like a little bit of political intrigue and mystery, this will be the book for you. Welcome, James, and thank you for coming on the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm very excited.
So, is this your first book that you've written, or is this just the first book that you've written for CKP?
This is the first book that I've written. I've been a filmmaker and screenwriter for 20 years, so I'm no stranger to story. But this is the first my debut in novel writing, and I got to say it was kind of a bumpy transition to go from screenwriting to novel writing. So I'm glad that it's being well received.
Well, that's people think that just because you write in one medium that you can write in all mediums, and I think it's very much like being a mechanic. Just because you can fix cars doesn't mean you can work on 18-wheelers. So for you to be able to write across genres means that you must be very talented, because I know within screenwriting you're very constrained by the number of minutes that you have to work in. So it's very much like writing short stories, and having a novel to write must have been both freeing and daunting at the same time.
Well, you nailed it. There's a certain freedom that I'm not used to in screenwriting and films in particular. You cannot usually hear what characters are thinking. You can only see what they're doing and hear what they're saying. So, being in the novel space, I really get to dive into the characters and really hopefully the reader gets to know them. And I really wanted to write them so that it was people that we knew. It reminded us of our neighbor or our brother or our best friend. Because those are always the characters that I resonate with. I often refer to like Firefly, the TV show. Those are characters that I know them. Like Jane is that buddy down the street that I know exactly how he's going to react to every situation. So that's kind of what I intended for the characters in the Soul Saga and Revolution in particular.
And, it's funny you say that because we've mentioned several times over the years of the podcast, you can be a terrific plotter and be able to have a great understanding of how to technically write a story so that all the parts are there and that it tells a coherent story. But if you can't write characters, if you can't make a three-dimensional person that people care about, you really don't have a story. But you can take someone who has average storytelling skills, but have the ability to imbue characters with life. And an average story can take on a larger, more than the sum of its parts, because you actually want to know what these people are going to do. And you did that. I mentioned to you before the podcast, your main military character in this book, he really resonated with me. And the female governor, that we won't go into what happens to her, she really resonated with me. So you have a great grasp of how to write a character that people would care about, and I guess that comes from your screenwriting background.
I hope so. I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons my whole life, and getting to experience people playing multitudes of characters. So I think it's been part of my blood. But that makes me happy to hear, because my approach to storytelling is a simple plot with dynamic characters that screw everything up.
And, I've spoken to Jim Butcher about Dresden, and he said several times over the years that he wakes up in the morning and he says, "What can I do to make Harry miserable today?"
Yeah, I often got accused of being, I don't know if I can curse, but I guess just bleep it out. But I often get accused of being a to my characters. So, yeah. Me and Jim Butcher would probably get along.
It makes great storytelling, and it's better than John Ringo, who writes a character that you absolutely fall in love with and you want to know the next 10 years of their life, and he kills them, halfway through the book. So
Exactly.
So you mentioned, so you're planning on this to be a trilogy, or do you see it going further than that?
My ultimate goal, I think, is to make this a trilogy of trilogies. I think in film terms, so everything I do is kind of in a 3-act arc. Books 1, 2, and 3 are in them themselves, 3 acts within the book itself. But then the first trilogy is an arc. Second trilogy would be its own arc, and so on and so forth. So, I think everything I do story-wise is going to be in 3 acts. So for me to finish the story that I have in my head, it would take 9 books. But we'll see. I mean, it really depends on how much it resonates with the readers.
Well, since you mentioned that, why don't you give our readers as much of a back cover blurb as you can without giving away any spoilers? Okay.
That's tough for me to do because I love talking about my story, and I usually put my foot in my mouth about, giving the story away. But basically what I set out to do is to give readers a good hard sci-fi look at what a first, quote unquote fleet-wide action would look like in space. And I wanted to really kind of drill down to a inciting incident that would spark a revolution. Like we historically as humans can pinpoint wars were mostly due to a circumstance, circumstances that really kind of aligned with one event that kicked off the war, right? I mean, World War I, World War II, there were lots of things happening, but there was really like one catalytic event that kind of kicked the whole thing off. So I kind of played with with, how would we get into space? What would it take to get there? What would it take to colonize Mars? I talked to a lot of physicists and astrophysicists and biologists, and really kind of was like, okay, what would it take? How could we feasibly colonize Mars? And really kind of dove into it and started to think about what that impetus would be, like what would be the triggering event that could spark a revolutionary war on a colony, basically, that's not on Earth. And I immediately thought of a high profile assassination could create a situation that could spark a revolutionary war. And I really wanted it to fit tonally with, our long bloody history of conflict. And so I tried to write it so that if you put, M16s in their hands, it could be a contemporary war. If you put swords or knives in their hands, it could be, a medieval war. If you put rocks and clubs in their hands, it could be, a tribal war back in caveman days. I really wanted it to try to feel like all of the things that have come, historically come to pass as far as human violence. And so the story is a very human one. The setting just happens to be sci-fi. So I try to base it on historical events and as much as possible, and really kind of give it that depth that resonates with readers, so that it's like, yeah, this feels a lot like what's happening in the world, or what has happened in the world, and draw people down conclusions, and then pivot them, obviously, because you got to keep everybody guessing.
And I think you did an excellent job with that, and I totally concur with you that the story that you tell could be told in a number of settings. And once again, I think the key to your book is the characters and the interactions between them, and the way that two separate groups of people with two different sets of agendas both come to the same conclusion and then come back together toward the end of the book and unite forces to go for the same goal of fixing the problem that happens in the beginning of the book. That's what struck me most is, you have your political side and you have your military side, and they both come to the same conclusions independently of each other. And that was fascinating.
Yeah. Well, I think that the really the goal for me was to showcase human greed, like what are people willing to do for money and power? Yes. Right.
For power. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And you've got this, a military arm of the government that is being manipulated. You've got a political arm of the government that's being manipulated and used. And, those two things are, across the table from each other, only to realize that they're on the same side in the end, that they're both just being manipulated. So, I think that humans, as information is shared more openly and more freely, starting to kind of see some patterns of manipulation. And, I think that pattern recognition is going to continue. And so that's going to make, the manipulators a little bit more devious. So, that's something I definitely had fun exploring when writing the book.
And to the people who are listening to the podcast, I want to tell you, there is a big political twist at the beginning of the book during a power changeover that showcases evil in a really great way. It's almost a Hannibal Lecter moment that when I read that, I had to go back and read that section again, because I could not believe that out of left field you wrote that transition of power and the way that you wrote it. That is absolutely amazing.
Oh, thank you. I love that part. I don't know what that says about me as a person, but I love that part so much.
I don't know what it says about you as a person, but I know exactly what it says about you as a writer. It tells me that you're a writer I want to read more of. Awesome. I can't tell the listeners anymore without spoiling a major portion of the book, but that one chapter is worth the price of admission for this book. If you got nothing else out of the book, it's worth reading that, because it's absolutely evil. So one of the questions that I ask all the authors that come on here, if you were a farmer, I would probably ask you, what's your favorite plant? So if, since you're an author, if you had to recommend a book that's really important to you that you think is something that everybody ought to read, what would be the book? What book has affected you that if you go to a con or something, somebody comes up to you and they ask you to recommend a book, what do you recommend to them to read?
Oh my gosh. Geez, how long do we have? So, I mean, I was an avid reader growing up. I mean, I was that kid that would pack 3 or 4 books and a loaf of bread and some cheese in a backpack, go climb a tree, and just hang out there all day reading and munching on crackers and bread and cheese or whatever. And I would just stay all day in the tree.
Sounds like me.
Yeah. And so, I mean, growing up, I was a voracious reader of Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time. And I think as a storyteller, you know, that probably had the biggest impact and imprint on me as far as you know, developing my love of character and that anticipation of like knowing a character so deeply. I could write the story for Robert Jordan. You know, like I know them so well. He could just stop mid-book and I could finish it based on the situations that he established. And, you know, and I think that Brandon Sanderson, you know, has picked up that mantle and, you know, finished the Wheel of Time series in an amazing way and is an incredible storyteller outside of the Wheel of Time series. And, you know, he has continued to impress. He's probably my favorite author in the world right now. I eagerly consume everything that he turns out and aspire to be like him as a writer. But I would say that, you know, pick up anything from Robert Jordan, anything from Brandon Sanderson, you're not going to be disappointed. But right now, Pierce Brown's Red Rising is my #1 book.
Oh, I haven't heard of this. I'll need to look that up.
It's another Mars story, but the characters are so rich. This is the only book that in the series at large that has developed such a love of character of some of the characters for me that when something bad happens to one of the characters, I had a visceral, physical, and verbal reaction to it. I launched the book across the room and cursed a blue streak that would have made my dad's toenails curl up, right? And I refused to read the rest of the book. I was like, screw this book, screw this author. I'm done. This is stupid. How dare he? I was violent about the decision. And so much so that my wife was laughing at me and making fun of me. And she's like, just finish the book. There's like 20 pages left. I was like, no, screw this book. I don't want anything to do with this book. And I was, you know, I remember saying something to the effect of, I will not reward the author with me finishing the book. Like, how dare he? And I was like, there's no reason for it. It's just a shock value thing. It's stupid. He killed off the best character in the book. And, you know, they were like, just finish the damn book. And I finished it. And, you know, the author did a really good job of making it worthwhile in retrospect. So, you know, it was good. It was a really, really good, impactful book. And Pierce Brown does a really, really good job. I mean, like, I just want to like hang out with Pierce Brown and like drink tea and chat story for like a weekend. That's how good it was.
Yeah, I know exactly how you feel. When I was much younger, I was able to have an afternoon like that with Roger Zelazny, who I absolutely loved everything he wrote. And man, I walked away from that thinking, you know, if I could just have 1/10 of that talent, just talking to him was like reading a story. He was so talented. So I know exactly how you feel. So for our listeners, to keep track of what you've got going on and when the next book's going to be out and what you're working on, or do you have any social media that they can go to and keep track and keep pace of what you're releasing?
Yeah, so I'm mostly active on Instagram at this point. So that's at JamesB.Fox_official. But I've got a solo page, so all my links are there at solo.to/JamesFox. And really the best way to keep up to date with everything is to go to my website, thejamesfox.com, and sign up for my newsletter. I mean, I put a lot of very personal stuff. I own a horse ranch up by Yosemite National Park. And,
I bet that's beautiful.
It's fun. I mill my own lumber and have building projects going all the time and do a lot of just really fun, cool things, partially to research stories that I'm wanting to write. And everybody who signs up for my newsletter on my website gets access to that information. My social media stuff is more just kind of like book updates and series updates and things like that.
Cool. Well, other than what we've talked about, is there anything I've missed or anything that you want to talk about?
No, I think this was pretty good. I'm excited with being published by Chris Kennedy Publishing and CKP, and I'm just I'm really thrilled to be counted amongst some of my heroes in that realm. And I'm hoping that readers like the books. And one of the things I will say too about social media is I'm very I won't say active, but I'm very responsive on social media. I talk to readers every day. And to the point where some of the readers have even gotten nods in some of the books for some of the things that they've recommended. I like to, it's that dungeon master in me, right? I like to try to include anybody who's willing. So if anybody wants to chat about my books or other books or whatever, storytelling in general, I love chatting with readers any chance I get.
Well, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to come on the podcast. I want to reiterate that this is one of my favorite books that I've read recently. It's something that is different from your traditional CKP fare, and I strongly recommend that everyone give it a chance. I expect that after reading this first book that Mr. Fox is going to have a long and profitable career, second career away from his screenwriting duties, because if this is indicative of the kind of work he can do, I think it's going to appeal greatly to our readers. So thank you so much for being on the podcast, and I hope we're able to do this again soon for book number 2.
Looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to the CKP Future Books podcast with host Randall Willis. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider leaving it a review on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you subscribe. Show likes and channel subscriptions are also much appreciated on the CKP YouTube channel. Finally, if you'd like to know more about this author or others on the CKP roster, visit chriskennedypublishing.com. Thanks for listening to the CKP Future Books podcast. We'll see you next time.